This is Sean Crystal. Catch the Inkpulp podcast on PharcydeTV Wednesdays at noon Pacific Time, 3 o'clock Eastern Time. Come hang. Peace.
Yo, the price of games, rise up, stand the price, the loss of legs. My occupation, in essence, not complacent. Block the banquet, stop the computation. I'ma make the coda, fools just wanna make the quota. They can't rock around here, they need baking soda. This a hydra, no way they taking over. Lay them below the basement with snakes and cobras.
This is the Inkpulp podcast. Welcome back to the Inkpulp podcast. I'm your host, Sean Crystal. And today we're going to finish rendering this Batman and probably taping it down to board. So, like I was saying last time, think about the directional marks you're drawing in, even when you're shading. I'm trying to think about how my mark making will keep you in the composition, moving in the directions that I'm intending for. We as the artists are the power of guiding the eye. That's what composition's all about. And if you want to know a little bit more about composition, feel free to check out my podcast episode on basic composition. And come over to Inkpulp Instruction, where I have some real in-depth lessons on composition and design. I think it is... I've often said this as a professional and as a teacher. When it comes to comics, drawing is extremely important, but design is even more so. So think about that. You need a comic to be drawn well enough to be clear in its storytelling and interesting enough artistically that the reader's going to want to engage with it. And if that's not the most important aspect, the statement is made to get across the importance of design, in my eyes. So those are invaluable lessons, and you can check out the quick and dirty version on my podcast, and then go to Inkpulp Instruction and get the more in-depth version. Alright, so now that we're here, I'm just going to soften a few edges on that lip, soften a few edges here. There we go. And soften a few edges here. Like so. And soften a few edges here. And I am again thinking about the direction of moving the eye into the composition that way with the marks I'm making. So now as I come down to here, I want to kind of pull them more through the composition, so I'm going to be rendering more in that directional space. As I get down towards the bottom of the composition here, I don't want your eye lingering there. And that gets back to, and I talk about this in all my videos on composition, understanding your focal point. Understanding where you want the reader's or the viewer's eye to settle ultimately. And you're going to see me, after I get this one area kind of blocked in, we're going to then go in and push our darks so that the areas where I really want the viewer to settle start becoming more apparent. Because right now, with the way the rendering is and the mark making, it's just like, hey, look at this as a whole. And I think that's one of the things that really separates really professional level work from more amateur level work is understanding that. How am I controlling your eye as you look at this? And there are plenty of professionals who have amateur skills. So it doesn't mean, when I say professionals, that this is someone who is published known artist. I mean, there's plenty of professional level artists who maybe aren't as well known. And what I'm doing here is, again, remember, this area I do not want the reader's eye settling in. So I am not going to make an area of high contrast in here. But this area is going to be dark, and within that dark I want you to see subtle shifts of value. But I don't want the contrast high enough that it says, hey, this is where I want your eye to settle. So this little technique I'm doing, rendering into, let me sharpen this area and not rendering it out in full, is something to watch as I'm doing this, and I'll explain more and more as I go through it. So what I'm doing here is I'm bringing some interest to the rendering in this area, but it's going to all be in the shadow area of the composition, so you will not settle on it ultimately. And it will be there to be seen, but not command your attention. And this is very much coming from the school of Frazetta. So with that in mind, I'm going to keep building my darks. Now as I'm getting more into closer to the area I want you to settle, which is in here, I'm going to be raising the stakes quite a bit. But let's first come in here. And these, like letting these lines show, is something I enjoy in my work. Not having these soft gradient like transitions that are more typical of academic drawing. I mean, I love that when I see it done well. I do. I just, in my work, I don't know, I think I'm just more graphic minded than that. It's the pop artist, the urban inspired artist in me, the cartoonist in me. I just like having these marks show. So I'm just coming into here, and you can see I'm starting to build some darks. So let me demonstrate. So in this directional mark making, I'm going to build some more darks into it. See, like so. And then down here, get a little more, not a ton. Okay, so that area looks kind of interesting. And now I'm getting the sensation that I need to start bringing some darks to light. Now I know I want this area to be so high contrast. I want dark darks, and I want that color that I'm going to lay in that reflective light to really just pop. So I'm going to come in here and start to really darken. And again, as I paint, this will all lighten a bit, so I can really build my darks even more on top of that, should I choose to. See what I'm saying? And I want these edges to be so hard and graphic. Something I discovered in my work that I really enjoy too is letting the side with that reflective light be really hard and graphic looking. So please excuse my sharpening. The eyes, I need to be really dark. That's kind of like the centerpiece of this whole painting. I'm going to have these near white eyes surrounded by these dark darks and color pops, so that they will definitely be the centerpiece of the show. Okay, and then both eyes need to be that dark. And this illustration board, being so thick, it has a little bit of a give to it. Which I don't love, but I learned to work with. Okay, and then I can have I want to subtly bring some darker stuff over to here, but not have it compete with what's going on the other side. This is where I'm using a little bit more of a softer transition. Okay. And now that we're in the heart of the face, I really want to darken that up too. So you can see we're getting some darks there, which is great. Okay. Let me sharpen again. I mean, it's just essential that you really have a sharp tip to do this stuff. Not to worry, we're almost done. And here I can have some darks in there, but watch what I can do. I can continue this directional rendering with a darker mark in here that lightens as we move outward. Nice. But on this side, remember, we want the darky, 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 darks. Those pure blacks, if you will. And what I'll do is when I'm painting, I'll explain this more, but I'm not going to use black when I paint. I like this purple I make out of these alpha acrylics, which you'll see that acts as almost a damn black, but it just has a little bit of a purple tint too. It's also something I do when I'm coloring digitally. I tend to throw a little bit of a purple tint on top of my line work. I just think it makes for a nice look. Okay. So I'm pulling this part of the face forward from that by darkening there. I'm not going to darken as we get lower. Okay, I'm going to have my chin come forward a little bit there. Okay. Now, over here, I think what we're going to do is we definitely want this to be dark. I know that. I want that contrast there to be real dark. Okay. What I'm not going to do is separate the skin from the mask too much. So let me just come in and start to really just say, hey, I'm going to keep this dark. And then what I'm going to do is we're going to pull this out a little more with that directional rendering again. And I'll blend it in too. So it's not so doesn't jump out from the black is like, you want to have a transitional phase from that black to those feather marks. So I will do that for sure. And I'll do that just by working the base of those feather marks so they seem to transition from the dark out. And this may seem like, well, isn't all that just going to get lost when you paint? Some of it will, some of it won't. It's better to just kind of try to keep it or make it how it'll look good now, and then whatever comes through in the end will be a gift, and whatever doesn't won't be a problem. That's all I'm saying. There we go. Alright, we're pretty close to being done. I think I just want to add a little more value over in here. Yeah, I think we're just going to leave it at that. So, that's the Inkpulp podcast for today. Check out the link in my comments right below, inkpulpinstruction.com. Come over there and get a video. It's going to help you tremendously in your artistic development, I promise. Peace. Comics, hip hop, life.